Alechem Shalom. All right. Who's this? Leo.
I haven't been here in a while. Good reason.
Baruch Hashem. Okay, Parashat Veyetzeh. What do we start with? Reb Chaim Shmulevitz. That's always a good place to start. Yaakov Avinu comes to Haran, and he sees Rachel, and he starts to cry. The commentaries explain, because the Pasukim don't tell us so much information, but the commentaries do. And that's good that we always have commentaries that fill in the details. They fill in the gaps where things are not so clear. And it gets us to see a little bit of parenthetical. A lot of times, just like with Pasukim, you read through a parasha, you read through a passage in the Navi, it's very cryptic. You try to understand, you don't know what's flying. If you stop 2 minutes to think, you're like, what? He did this, and then they did that, and nothing seems to add up. And then all of a sudden you look at the commentaries, and they shed so much light and information that you had no idea even existed. Like, you never could have thought of it. If you could have been here for 100 years in this world, you never would have imagined how much is going on behind the scenes. So it's so beautiful. But it's also true for life. A lot of times, we think we know what's going on. We think we get the story. But when we consult and we discuss and we look deeper into the Torah's understanding, you could have a whole new story develop without even understanding what's actually going on. So it just gives us a highlight to like how much depth there is in the world that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created, and in the chokhmah of the Torah. The wisdom of the Torah gives a person depth. What's the hard part is that when a person doesn't expose himself to that wisdom, so the most, you could call it the biggest catch-22. If a person doesn't have the wisdom, so with what wisdom will he know that the wisdom even exists? Right? It's a problem. A lot of times the ceiling of a person doesn't allow him to see. What do you mean? This is so obvious, it's so easy, it's so blatant. Of course this is what I need to do. And without the Chokhmat Torah, one of the biggest deficiencies is that he won't understand. A lot of times a person doesn't get that there's more to the story than what meets the eye. So of course, Avotenu HaKedoshim, Yaakov Avinu kisses Rachel and he cries. All of these things are very not really explainable. Today it would be something forbidden to do. Even back then, it says that the people of Haran were not happy with Yaakov Avinu. What is he bringing? Immorality into our presence. We don't have such a custom to be affectionate just because she's a relative. She was a cousin, right? Rachel was his cousin. But still, this is still asur to do. And even the people of Haran understood that, and they were separated from the prohibited relationships, and they didn't do such things. So of course, Yaakov Avinu did everything L'Shem Shamayim. To him, the kiss that he gave to Rachel was nothing more than a father kissing his own daughter. Like it was not in any sense a kiss of lust. It was a kiss of nevuah and prophecy, which again are high levels that we can never understand, because we would never feel that way, honestly. And therefore it's very difficult for a person that doesn't see the world that way to see that someone else could see that world that way. But Yaakov Avinu cried, and that needs explanation. So the Midrash tells us, and the Sichot Musar brings us down, that the reason why he cried is because of a very basic compare and contrast. We had Eliezer, a generation before, comes to find a wife for his father, Yitzhak. And he finds Rivka, and the minute he sees Rivka and all of the chesed, all of the kindness, all of the good that she does, he immediately takes, when we talked about this last week, he takes nose rings, he takes bracelets, he puts it on her, he has jewelry, he has so much bracha, so much wealth. He comes to the house of Betuel in the house of Lavan, and it's the same Lavan, right? Same Lavan. And he sees Eliezer with a slave, a servant of Avraham Avinu, but he's unbelievably rich with wealth and was given all the possessions and the incredible jewelry and items that were specialty items, the most expensive in the world, to give to Rivka. Yaakov Avinu remembers that scene as it was told to him by his parents, and he cries because he's coming to the house of Lavan, and he has nothing. To the point that even Lavan didn't believe it. He's like, for sure he's hiding everything. He didn't believe that Yaakov really didn't have anything. And why didn't Yaakov? He didn't leave Eretz Canaan, Eretz Israel without nothing. He came prepared. He did his ishtadut. So what happened? Midrash tells us there was a man named Eliphaz. Eliphaz was the nephew of Yaakov Avinu, the son of Esav, and Eliphaz came to kill Yaakov. And Eliphaz had a very major dilemma. The dilemma was, he comes before Yaakov, and fascinatingly, you could tell the man is conflicted because he sort of consults with Yaakov Avinu, for lack of a better word, with what he should do regarding Yaakov Avinu. Now that's a very strange thing to do, but when a person is conflicted, it doesn't have to make so much sense. So Eliphaz says, on the one hand, my father commanded me, and he told me, I don't want to see your face again until you get rid of Yaakov. Yaakov must be eliminated. He's dead, and you're going to kill him. Now, Eliphaz on the one hand knows that tzivuyo shel Abba, ma eseh letzivuyo shel Abba. What am I going to do with my father's command? And on the other hand, Eliphaz grew b'chiko shel Yitzhak. He was a grandson of Yitzhak, and he was raised on the knees of Yitzhak. Mamash, Yitzhak took him as like a ben Haviv, a beloved grandson, and raised him and taught him Torah. And then you say to yourself, here's this man, and you can imagine the incredible conflict. On the one hand, he knows Yitzhak Avinu taught him Torah, taught him a way of life, taught him derech eretz, how a person is supposed to conduct himself, the midot, tzniut, every sensitivity in the book. Yitzhak Avinu gave the best shiurim out of anybody. And the lessons were inspiring and powerful, and Eliphaz felt it, and he knew that you can't even harm a fly, let alone to harm Yaakov Avinu. And on the other hand, his father is telling him, you must kill Yaakov. This was a terrible conflict that highlights to a large extent the contradiction that exists in a singular human being. You say you can have two people that contradict themselves. You can have one person doing a lot of good and one person doing a lot of evil. They're massive contradictions if you put them in the same room, but they're two different people, so it's fine. But the fact that one person could be so contradictory to himself, that on the one hand, he's so involved with mitzvot, he's the student, the top student of Yitzhak, and at the same time, he's willing to take his feet and walk and chase Yaakov Avinu and kill him. It's like it's the most bizarre thing in the world. And if you think about it, you say, what happened with all the incredible lessons you learned in the house of Yitzhak? How can you even think of walking over to Yaakov to kill him? How could your feet even let you go to Yaakov with such a mission at hand? And the answer is, and this is the very scary and unfortunate reality that Reb Chaim Shulevitz points out, there's such a thing called light and darkness roaming in one person, and that darkness is not canceled out by the light, and sometimes it could even be a force to take the light hostage and to do worse than if he didn't have it at all. Here on the one hand, Yitzhak Avinu taught him values of Torah, right? So he taught him all the mitzvot. He taught him about the importance of take a mitzvah like kibud avayim. And Yitzhak Avinu taught him how important is the mitzvah of kibud avayim. And what does Eliphaz do? Because he has this evil father that resides, the darkness of his father resided in him. He did not perfect himself. To eradicate in himself the evilness of Esav, he takes the good of Yitzhak and he harnesses that very good to do evil. The very mitzvah that Yitzhak Avinu taught him to do kibud avayim, he says, now kibud avayim dictates that I have to kill Yaakov. Of course, that's not Torah. What is that? That's a perversion. That's taking the Torah hostage to do his own wills and his dark desires in a way that it would have been better if he didn't have the Torah. Because if he wouldn't have valued kibud avayim, then he wouldn't have wanted to kill Yaakov. It was only through the value of kibud avayim. They said, I have to honor my father, so I'm going to kill you. What do you mean? It doesn't make any sense. You know that's not the truth. I didn't eradicate the evil inside of me. So I'll take the good and it will be harnessed for evil. It's unbelievable how important it becomes for a person to completely remove the evil. Otherwise, the evil will take over the good. I'll give you some live examples. When the Bnei Torah, who all they want is to sit in Eretz Yisrael, I'm talking about in Israel, to sit and learn peacefully without being interfered and bothered and not being harmed, and to be able to run their lives freely. All around them, there are people that are Jewish in name Jewish, and they protest them. Not everyone obviously, but a lot of people, especially the left-wing society in Israel, they protest. Now, if they protested, that's one thing. They don't know. What do they know already about Torah? But listen to this corruption. They take Pesukim and sources from the Torah to protest against the Bnei Yeshiva. And not only against the Bnei Yeshiva, sometimes against the Gdolei Ador, the leaders of the generation. Rabbi Yitzchak Yosef. Rabbi Yitzchak Yosef. How can you go ahead and say people should sit and learn yeshiva? Hare, it says in the pasuk in the Torah. Now they start quoting psukim that Yitzchak Yosef doesn't know. He must have missed it, right? Which psukim? Ha'achechem yetzeu lamilchama ve'atem teshevu po. Your brothers will go out to war, and you will sit here idly. And they quote psukim. It's like such a, it's a mama. I view it like a committing of adultery. It's mamash committing adultery. It's lotin af. Why? Because here you betray the Torah. You have this wedding. You betray it with everything. You don't keep Shabbat, you don't keep Kashrut, you don't keep any basics. You step all over the Torah and everything that it's valued, and you say everything that the Torah values is old news and is history and doesn't apply today. And while you're stepping on the Torah, you take that very same mantle and abuse it to what? To provide you an agenda to take people out of yeshivot. It's the most corrupt mentality. But this is what happens when there's a light that is overcome by darkness. Even the light itself ends up becoming darkness and used and harnessed in such negative ways. And unfortunately, it's a reality. People that have not perfected themselves will use the Torah to justify every corrupt notion that is inside of them. They'll take the Torah and use it to justify every evil that exists, which they otherwise wouldn't have done with the same level of alacrity and zealousness. They now do with a sort of charge of I'm doing something positive and constructive. And again, you see this.
Hashem's name.
Huh?
Even for Hashem's name.
V'shem Shamayim. Yeah. Everything they do is V'shem Shamayim. This is the one main reason why the Rosh Yeshiva of Chavetz Chaim said the people that earnestly believe that they're doing the right thing and they disagree with me, I can handle. But the ones that come, that they think they're doing the right thing in the name of L'Shem Shamayim, those have been the ones that were most difficult to handle. Because someone who does something so-called L'Shem Shamayim, meaning abusing the L'Shem Shamayim for his own need, there is no limit and no end to where he will stop. Because if it's for the sake of Hashem, it becomes a blind mission. And unfortunately, if the person hasn't eradicated evil, it means that what he wants becomes L'Shem Shamayim. And then everything else is destroyed along the way in its path. And that's a very scary reality. Rav Moshe Feinstein said it in something else, because there was another scenario that existed in the times of Rav Moshe. They decided, it existed before, but it became much more prevalent. It's one of the talking points, especially of people that are non-religious. Till this very day, it's a very big talking point. The Rambam used to work. The Rambam held it was a Hilul Hashem for a person to be paid for Torah and mitzvot. So Mimela, why are there people learning in yeshivot? They should be going out to work. This is the yesod that Rav Moshe Feinstein in his Tshuvot, he says you should know, anybody that says such a thing, he's the mouthpiece of the Yetzer Hara. Those are his words. It's a tzata yetzer to say such a thing. What the Rambam did, first of all, this is one of the most important points, what the Rambam held, even Maran, the Shulchan Aruch, who followed the Rambam in almost every single detail, Shulchan Aruch followed the Rambam. In this halakha, he disagreed with the Rambam. So Maran, Shulchan Aruch, they loved quoting the Rambam, but we Sfaradim, we don't follow the Rambam, we follow Maran, the Shulchan Aruch. That's our psak. It's amazing how it's forgotten. The answer is because it's an agenda. It's not a person who cares about Torah and mitzvot and genuinely feels, I don't understand, I want to get it better. It's an agenda, and it's using the light of Torah to bash people that actually care about Torah and mitzvot, and to use that to harness it for the evil and the wishes that they desire to fulfill what's really the depravity in their own hearts. And that's the reality of who Eliphaz was. This man, you would say, oh, it's so wonderful. He's learning in the house of Yitzhak. It's not wonderful at all, because he was learning in the house of Yitzhak how to use good in order to be corrupted. Baruch Hashem, that Yitzhak had the foresight to know very well who Eliphaz was and who Esav was. It was only because of Yitzhak that Yaakov Avinu wasn't a dead man. It was only because of Yitzhak, because look at the wisdom. On the one hand, he takes Esav, the father, and he brings him close. He says, Esav, you're a tzaddik, I want to give you brachot, I want to do good for you, you're really a great... No, Yitzhak knows who Esav is, he's no fool. He's not being fooled by anybody. And for sure not by Esav. He, without seeing, he could tell there was avodah. He could smell the avodah zarah when Esav walks in. When Yaakov Avinu walked in, the smell of Gan Eden went with him, and Yitzhak was able to pick this up. You should know that a person who has humility, there's like, I guess the Gemara uses the language of reach, but reach doesn't mean just the smell, it means the vibes. The vibe of humility exists in the aura, where there's a tzaddik. And where there's a rasha, there's a stench of arrogance, takes up the whole place, that it says, the Gemara tells us, Gemara says something beautiful about Eliyahu Navi was walking with one of the great Hasidim in Am Yisrael many years ago, and they were walking by a carcass of an animal. And the smell was so awful, the Hasid had to close his nose. He couldn't breathe from the terrible smell. Eliyahu Navi walked regularly. And then they passed by, it says they passed by an individual that was an arrogant person. And the Hasid was able to walk, he didn't have to close his nose, but Eliyahu Navi couldn't stand the smell. He's like, what are you smelling? He's like, the ga'ava, I can barely smell a ga'ava. A ga'ava, I have to be careful about. But you could smell the carcass, but not, this is the worst smell of them all. And the people that have arrogance, Eliyahu Navi couldn't even be present. It says HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself can't be present, not in the room. There's not enough space in the entirety of the universe to contain a person who has ga'ava and a Kadosh Baruch Hu. En ani vahu yecholim ladur yachad ba'olam. We can't exist in the same world. Why? Because his ego takes up all the space. The entire universe. He is the entire. There's nothing outside of him. There's nothing that exists. There's some people that it's a very unfortunate reality. They're incapable. They've never worked on themselves to see outside of themselves. Even the people that are physically outside, my relationship to them is transactional to what I can receive. I'll do for what I can. Mamash like capitalism. Their whole life is capitalism. I don't care about doing hesed, I care about hesed. I want to make a lot of money. So if I go ahead and I produce good social media videos and posts, and I'll get a lot of views, I'll make a lot of money. I care about all those people. I don't care an ounce of any one of them. I could care less. As long as they click, it's good enough. If they end up getting addicted, if they end up going ahead and doing bad things as a result of what they learn, that's their problem. I'm making in the big money. There's no chesed involved in that. That's a chesed of himself. He only cares about himself, his whole world. So Bar Gava just sees that. So Yaakov Avinu had the smell of Gan Eden. Yitzhak Avinu is able to pick that up. So he's not able to know who Esav is. Of course he knows who Esav is. The whole plan of Yitzhak is, I know you, Esav. I'm not going to let you on that I know who you are. I'm going to keep that to myself and I'm going to bring you closer. In a certain sense, there's an expression in English, you have to keep your friends close, but keep your enemies closer. Right? Why do you want to keep your enemies? Watch over them to make sure that they don't do anything terrible. So Yitzhak Avinu, he adored Esav in the sense that Esav, you're a great tzaddik. It chains him down. It's a psychological chain. That now Esav knows that his father appreciates him, cares about him, has an image, a very important image to his father. He doesn't want that image to be destroyed because no person in the whole entire universe wants his image destroyed. This is why people easily get angry in their own homes, but very much all of a sudden are very patient, very calm, very respected outside. Because image matters to everyone. If it's business, in their house, they might dress with, pajamas, they might wear a t-shirt, or maybe not even wear a shirt. Outside, tuxedo. They make sure they go out with their watch. The women, they dress up, they put on makeup. Some women will never leave the house without makeup. Why? Image, image, image. It's all about the image, especially the world we live in today. There's even more awareness to that and the importance of it. You'll never see the President of the United States. You'll never see him without makeup. You ever thought of that? Think about that for a second. The President of the United States is like the most powerful figure. Yeah, but the morning, he wakes up in the morning and the first thing they do is put on makeup. That's unbelievable. Very feminine, if you think about it, right? It doesn't seem to fit the reputation. Huh?
Trump doesn't mind. He's been
the movie star. But I'm saying like, that's the level of how important image is to people. Image makes such a difference. The whole world revolves around this. Who knew this very well? Yitzhak Avinu understood image better than anybody. And he says, if Esav cares about his image, that means I have something to work with. That means this is a value to him. He might not be there yet, but he cares to look like a tzaddik. That means that there's a value. If I crush that, I'm finished with Esav. There's nothing holding him down. And that image is what actually saved Yaakov. Why? Because now Esav wants to kill Yaakov, right? He wants to kill him for the brachot. Esav knows that Yitzhak Avinu hears that Esav killed Yaakov. He's going to be terribly disappointed. My son, that I thought was such a big tzaddik, and so humble, so modest, so careful in his conduct, and every halakha killed his own brother, he's going to erase me from the face of the earth. So Esav cared about his image. He did not care. A lot of people think, he didn't want to see his father being pained. Really? If he didn't want his father to be pained, why would he send his own son to kill Yaakov? You think that's not going to pain his father? Of course it's going to pain his father. Esav doesn't care about the pain of Yitzhak. He cares about his image. My father can't see that I killed him. Someone else does it. Pseda, my son, bad son, terrible. You shouldn't have done that. No. But my image is preserved. So he wants Yaakov dead, but he's not going to be the one to do it. By the way, that's why Eliphaz was hesitant, because he said, he wants me to do it. Why doesn't he do it himself? So Eliphaz already had seeds of doubt because Esav wasn't willing to do it. If Esav would have done it, rest assured, he would have gotten the job done. He was able to kill anybody. He's Nimrod. He was the top hunter in the world. He was able to kill him. He was certainly able to kill Yaakov. If he would have done it himself. He didn't do it because he was ensnared by Yitzhak in his wisdom. And Eliphaz didn't do it because of the fact that his father didn't do it, and the training that Yitzhak gave to Eliphaz was just enough to put him over the top, that Eliphaz was also scared to do it, which is unbelievable. Yitzhak single-handedly, with wisdom, not with strength, and not with might, and not with any speech, no speech, just pure wisdom of Torah, was able to save Yaakov from a great distance. That's incredible wisdom. That reminds me of the Gemara in Psachim about Rabbi Yehuda ben Tzivim, the great Rabbi Yehuda ben Betera, who lived far away from Yerushalayim. And this goy came to Rabbi Yehuda and says, you think your Jewish people are so smart? I swindled them. How did you swindle them? Now he was calm. The goy realized Yehuda ben Betera is so far away. Even if I tell him the truth of what happened in Yerushalayim, there's nothing he could do about it. He's not going to be able to access Yerushalayim. It's not going to make any difference. So he wasn't afraid to tell him the truth. He said, I went to Yerushalayim, and as a goy, where the Torah says you can't bring Korban Pesach, I got the Korban Pesach. I was able to be part. I pretended to be Jewish. They let me in. They invited me in, and I ate from the Korban Pesach. You see, you Jews are fools. You believe anybody. So Rabbi Yehuda ben Betera said, listen, to eat from the Korban Pesach, that's not so impressive. The question is, which part of the animal did they give you? So what do you mean, which part? They gave me the ribs. The ribs are nothing. Did you taste the ox tail? It's not ox, right? It's sheep and goats. But to bring out the live example, right? We need to bring it to halacha lema'aseh. The oxtail, right? The aliyah, the good fats of the animal, the tail of the animal. What, you didn't ask him for the tail? That's the best part. They saved for themselves. They tricked you. He said, what? They didn't give me? He's saying to himself, okay, Rabbi Yehuda won this one, but I'm going to come back next year and I'm going to show him. He goes back. He demands this time around, it's not right. It's not fair. You guys are tricking me. I'm just as Jewish as you are. What do you want? What do you want? Got scared. They got nervous. Like, what did we do? How did we offend you? I want the tail. You have to give me the tail. I know you guys are hiding it for yourselves. The Kohanim are looking at each other and they saying to themselves, what are you talking? They're saying about him, tail is the mizbeach. Nobody gets the tail. The halacha is it goes up to the on the mizbeach and is burnt. There isn't a single person who eats from the korban pesach of the tail. So they said, who told you about the tail? Who told you about this? Rabbi Yudai Nitzivim, he told me. You're trying to fool me. Rabbi Yudai Nitzivim, they knew was a Talmid Chacham. He didn't get this from a fool. He got this from a Talmid Chacham. At the same time, they knew what the halacha was. So these people were brilliant. They put two and two together. And they realized, if Rabbi Yudai bin Nitzivim told him to bring from the Aliyah, that means he's not sending him a message, he's sending us a message. And then they did FBI investigation. They saw that he was an illegal immigrant, and they sent him back to Mexico. Right? But they didn't send him to Mexico, they sent him to Olam HaEmet. Right? They executed him for going ahead and eating from the Korban Pesach illegally, lying on his Judaism. He wasn't Jewish at all. And then they sent a message to Rabbi Yehuda ben Betera. And they said, Rabbi Yehuda ben Betera, the one that lives in Nitzivim, Umtsudato psusa b'Yerushalayim. You are there sitting and learning Torah in Nitzivim, and your net, your ensnarement, is placed on Yerushalayim. Meaning, the great man doesn't need any special weapons. He doesn't need Tomahawk missiles. He doesn't need, B-2s, bombers, to come all the way from Missouri all the way to Iran in order to. He uses his koach HaTorah. Through the power of Torah, he was able to bring down this goy without even realizing. And the best part of it, through himself. Nobody else. You brought your own downfall. This incredible level of wisdom the Chokhmat Torah generates. Yitzhak Avinu had that same level of wisdom. We come back to Eliphaz and we say to ourselves, how can one person have such good in him and such evil in him? And how dangerous is that combination of good and evil? Is the Eliyahu Navi said it very good. He said it very good, and this is very relevant today. He said to Am Yisrael at those times were worshiping the Baal. Very conflicted nation. On the one hand, they believed in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. On the other hand, they were worshiping idols. And they built Avodah Zarah on almost every hilltop. And Eliyahu Navi tells them a very important line. He says to Am Yisrael in a very loud voice, Ad matai atem posechin al shnei haseipim. How long are you going to ride on two horses, essentially? That you're going to step over two different doorways. Im haelokim hu haemet lechu acharav. If HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the correct, is right, is the power, then go after him. Ve'im labal lechu acharav. And if the Baal is true, go after it. Says Reb Chaim Shmulevitz, freeze. What did Eliyahu Navi just say?
Survivors.
He said, he didn't say that. So let's say it right. Okay, he said close, but not exactly that. It's a big difference. Eliyahu Navi said, there's three choices. Either serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu, serve idols, or hybrid. Serve both. When you rank that, you would sort of say, okay, this is a ranking. Serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu is top notch, A+. Serving Avodah Zarah is an F. That's the worst. You're in between, okay, you have a chance to get there. That's sort of in the middle. Eliyahu Navi says that's not the order. Serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the best. Serving Avodah Zarah is second best. And serving both is the worst you could do. Because then you're lying to yourself. Then it's not only serving Avodah Zarah, even the good that you're doing is really being perverted and perverse for evil. This is the mentality. A lot of times today, you have people, they formed a new Judaism. It's not talking about a person who's trying to become closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu and I have flaws. That's very different. I serve Hashem and the Baal is not I have flaws. This is a new type, this is modern orthodoxy. This is a new religion. You've created a religion of doing it in this way. Reformism, conservatism, and Baalism. The religion is, we'll take a little bit of this, a little bit of that, we'll put it together, and now I have something. That type of a person is the most off person you can have. It's the most dangerous person and the least effective to even try speaking to such a person, because everything he'll justify is, I do believe. I just also believe in this. And that's the type of danger that Eliyahu Navi was saying. I would rather have a person worshiping idols. Because if he worships his idols, at least he's being honest. And there's a chance and a day that he might come to see the fraudulence and he'll come back. But if he does both, there's no way to convince a person who's dishonest with himself. Anything you tell him, he'll just say, but so what? I think this way. I believe, my religion, my heart tells me. And then there's nothing you could do about such an individual. He said, please choose, but don't be this. Anything but this is good. So what, again, the same theme we see. It's not so ironic that the one nation that is the most devastating and the one that we're commanded the most to wage a war against is the nation of Amalek. Amalek came from Eliphaz. That's pretty peculiar. You say out of all people in the whole entire world, Eliphaz should be the one to produce an Amalek, the nation that is the arch nemesis of Am Yisrael, the most evil of all people, the only nation that we're commanded to eradicate fully, men, women, and children, is Amalek. Why? It's not a coincidence that it's Eliphaz who created an Amalek, because it takes the light in order to energize the darkness. The reason Amalek became so sinister and so evil is because there was a battery of light fueling the darkness that was the train driving ahead. And Be'emet, I think that this is a good time to sort of pause and to realize that if you notice, this is a little bit of a difficult thing to say. It's a saddening thing to say, but it's a true reality. The people that sort of corrupted the world the most over the centuries and over the years is, interestingly, at least percentage-wise, there's always exceptions, but percentage-wise, it were Jews that strayed far away from the Torah. Why? Because the Jewishness of them, the neshama of Avraham Avinu, needs to be satisfied. It needs Torah. It needs to be disciplined. It needs to be taught. It needs to be restrained. It needs to develop. But when that great neshama, that great light, is subdued in a world of darkness and doesn't allow the light to penetrate the way the Torah prescribed, then that light will permeate in ways of darkness. And therefore, it's the far most dangerous thing in the world is to have a Jew that is removed from Torah and mitzvot. It is a danger to the universe, such a thing. And this is what we see time and time again. You just look in history and you'll see over and over and over again, and completely, utterly disproportionate numbers, Jews that had light of Judaism, but coupled together with the darkness of the Goyim, were the most devastating type of Jews that ever existed on the face of the world, either through the innovations they created or their ideas that they propagated, such dangers to the world that they became, and sometimes, unfortunately, the chidushim of perverseness, as we see today in the times today. This very day, they're still discussing Epstein. This person is Rasha Merusha. This is a stain on Judaism. How does a person become so depraved, so low, and like even Goyim never thought to reach levels of sickness that this man achieved, and it's unfortunate. Like such a reality is only capable, sadly, because the man had a Jewish neshama that was not used properly and was not directed properly. Halevai, if you could talk to all that crazy anti-Semites of the world and tell them their mistake, the biggest mistake they make, they might not be aware. Meaning they realize this. They're not foolish. What I'm saying now, they realize. But they have the wrong solution. That's their big problem. The only solution to Am Yisrael is to get them back into Torah. That's it. The Torah is the only way to solve these types of individuals. It's through the Torah. So if the nations of the world and the anti-Semites would have banded together to say every Jew has to keep Torah mitzvot, they would have actually solved a big problem in the whole entire world. But they don't have the sechel, they don't have the wisdom and the knowledge, because they themselves don't have Torah. How would they know how to fix it? So everybody tries to find their own way to go about it. But you have to know, a Jewish neshama that is not coupled with a Jewish Torah will end up doing great dangers to the very nation that is Am Yisrael. It's incredible. If you stop in Eretz Yisrael and you think about it, which other nation is waging a war against Torah? Trivia. Let's see if we have another answer to this. Which other nation is waging a war against Torah? Against Torah. I can only think of one. The state of Israel. It's unbelievable. There's not a single nation in the whole entire world that is waging a war against Torah. Maybe against Israel. Yeah, that's true. But against Torah, even Hamas didn't wage a war against Torah. Did you know that? When they asked the hostages, they gave them Sfarim. They wanted Sfarim, they gave them Sfarim. They're not waging a war against Torah. They're waging a war against the state. It's incredible. The only country waging a war against Torah is Am Yisrael. It's like, what? Does that make any sense? The answer is Reb Chaim Shmulevitz. Oh, v'choshech mishamesh b'irbuvia. When there's light and there's darkness, it's the most dangerous combination that exists. A goy has maybe darkness, but he doesn't have the light to power and to fuel the darkness. So okay, so you can inform, you can talk to, some goyim have light, some have more darkness, but it's on a certain level. This is the reason why there's a very fascinating halakha. The halakha says that a Jewish corpse is the only type of corpse that could create tum'at ohel. If there's a Jewish deceased person, everybody in the room becomes tameh. Even if they're on the other side of the room, they become impure. If a non-Jewish corpse exists, only somebody who touches the corpse becomes tameh. Everybody in the room is still tahor. There's a big nafkamina for kohanim. It's a big difference. A kohen, he's in a hospital of goyim, so there's no problem. Because let's say there's dead people in the hospital, but who cares? It's a non-Jewish hospital. This tumat oil doesn't apply. But if it's a Jewish hospital and the doors are open, so the tum'ah is able to, every opening it's able to go through, as long as it's a tefach. Even small openings, it's able to go through the tum'ah and it affects the kohen. So it's an amazing thing. You say to yourself, I thought we're Am Yisrael, we're so pure. What do you mean? That we're the ones to make more tum'ah? The answer is wherever there's more light, there's more capacity for impurity as well. And it's a sad reality, but it's something that we have to be very careful about ourselves, because what that means to us is that if we don't check ourselves and our own darkness, our internal darkness, we don't set it straight, then we will pervert the Torah. As religious people, we will pervert the Torah to be harnessed to the means of our darkness and not the means of our light. And that's something it's quite scary. And you do see this. You see this a lot. That a person who's angry, he knows that the Torah doesn't allow and accept anger. So what will he do? Could potentially do is he'll dafka get angry with things that involve Torah. Meaning he'll see one of his children didn't come to Beit HaKnesset and he'll start screaming at him. Why? Because anger is not allowed. But anger, when it's Torah, then he justifies. So in a certain sense, it's a harness of using the Torah to allow for corrupt and terrible conduct that the Torah does not sanction, does not okay, but he views as okay because it has the justification of I'm doing the will of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. How many times do you have to check ourselves every single day to make sure that our actions remain pure, in line, that it's not being led by darkness, that we're not taking the way of Eliphaz, abducting mitzvot to do our own will. To abduct, Yibud Avayim is a great mitzvah, is an incredible mitzvah, but it was abducted to commit the worst of crimes, to commit murder. He was willing to steal and take hostage such a great mitzvah in order to murder somebody else. It took a solution from Yaakov Avinu, Ani Hashuv Kemet, in order to spare his life. But that was a powerful Reb Chaim Shmulevitz that I think it's just an incredible piece of wisdom and knowledge to understand ourselves and to understand a lot of what's happening around us. There is a Gemara that seems to contradict something that happens in this week's Parashat. In this week, we find Yaakov doing a Herculean effort. What does Yaakov Avinu do? His Herculean, right? There was the big boulder that takes 10 people to pick up. It takes all the shepherds to gather together, and they have to go 1, 2, 3, they're barely able to lift it up. It's a huge boulder. Yaakov Avinu sees that all of the shepherds are there. Now, they're like just walking around and they're not doing anything. Yaakov Avinu is a little upset at them. He says, what are you doing? You get to work. Go give the sheep to drink and start going shepherding like you're supposed to do. So what happened was they told him we can't because it's a way for all the shepherds to come. So Yaakov Avinu sees one of the female shepherds, Rachel. The minute he sees Rachel, he takes the boulder single-handedly, lifts it up, and removes it. And not only does he do it, he doesn't even groan. Like he does it like it's like this. It was like nothing for him, which was, whoa, what just happened over here? So one of the questions that's asked, it's a very strange thing. You say to yourself, the Torah is into what? Gladiator mentality over here? Like, what's the big praise? Yaakov Avinu is big muscles. He went to the gym. He went to the cage. What was exactly the praise of Yaakov Avinu that he was able to do this? Like, why does the Torah give this value? You know, anything the Torah speaks about means it's valuable and it's important. So what's important about this? Like, why should we be impressed? Like, imagine Rabbi Elyashiv. I don't know. Just take Rabbi Elyashiv. He sees Yaakov Avinu do this. Why would he be impressed? Like, if you told me like a good Devar Torah, a good Chidush, you said something, you did some great mitzvah, like what's exactly impressive? He's physically he was strong? So it gets a little bit worse, the question, a little bit harder to understand once we see the Gemara. Because the Gemara in Baba Metzia, I told this to the high schoolers, Bizmano. I know they just had the latest news in Kilat Avodat Hashem, right? Current events. Let's do a little current event. Kilat Avodat Hashem is starting a basketball team. You heard about this, right? High school tryouts are going to be sometime Sunday. Did anybody know? Who knows? You know, Sunday tryouts? Ariel. When is it? What time? Where's your father? He's not here? Oh, there he is. Hanan's here.
Tryouts Saturday night.
Saturday night tryouts. What time?
8 or 8:30.
8 or 8:30. So it's Kilat Avodat Hashem are doing tryouts now. Rabotai, it's very important to understand. My number one condition when it comes to a basketball team is you must win. I don't like this Knicks mentality business, all right? We're not, Kilat Avodat Hashem are not losers. We're winners. So Hanan, that's the number one. I have one standard, one criteria, win. All right? I'm from Los Angeles. We don't lose games in Los Angeles, okay?
Depends which Los Angeles team,
But I'll tell you a story. A few years ago, Kilat Avodat Hashem also had a makeshift basketball team. And they decided, it was about high school kids, basically the age, high school age, maybe a little bit post-high school. And they decided, very unwisely, to play Yeshivas Chafetz Chaim. 5-on-5. I advised them against it. I said they're crazy. But they said, no, Rabbi, we're going to beat them. Don't worry, we got this. I was like, you're not going to beat them. You don't have a chance of beating them. You have no idea what you're going in for. But they decided that they do have a chance and that they're going to try. At least make an effort. I said, you know what? If they get exposure to Bnei Yeshiva, that's a good thing. It's a benefit. They're going to lose, they'll lose, whatever, it's okay. So the game went on. Now, needless to say, it wasn't just they lost. It was Kilat Avodat Hashem got clobbered, right? It was demeaning. It wasn't a loss. You know, there's a loss is like a competition, but it was like you couldn't watch. It was so bad. After the game, I told them, listen, Rabotai, you thought you were playing Bnei Yeshiva, and you thought that, you know, they sit and learn all day, and therefore they don't know how to play basketball. But you forgot one Rabbi Yaakov Naiman. One Rabbi Yaakov Naiman in Darchei Musar. If you would have remembered this Darchei Musar, you would have realized who you were up against. They said, what are you even talking about? I said, the Gemara. You don't remember the Gemara? What Gemara, Rabbi? What are you saying? I said to them, there's a Gemara about Rish Lakish. The Gemara there says, Rish Lakish and Rabbi Yohanan, their first encounter was not one in the Bet Midrash. That wasn't how they encountered each other. Rabbi Yohanan was always a great rabbi. Rish Lakish was a big robber. He wasn't exactly Noachish Tzaddik, right? And he sees Rabbi Yohanan, and he is bathing in the Jordan River. So Rish Lakish from a distance, Rabbi Yochanan was very, very handsome. He was a very beautiful person. And to the point that the Gemara says that when the women, they would come out of the mikveh, they would imagine him because his beauty had the beauty of Yerushalayim. It was like incredible beauty. When he passed away, the beauty of Yerushalayim also left. He was just an amazing type of person. So Rish Lakish sees him at a distance, doesn't realize man, woman, he doesn't see. He comes closer, he thinks it's somebody pretty. He comes closer, he realizes it's not who he thought it was. But at the meantime, Rabbi Yochanan turns around and Rish Lakish jumped the river like, I don't know how big, but like 30 feet, he jumped it with ease. And Rabbi Yochanan was shocked, he was taken aback. This is a very powerful type of person. He says, like the first words he utters is, Chelecha leoraita. Your strength is powerful, it could be used for Torah in such great capacity. And he says, Yofiech lenashim, your beauty is fit for women, it doesn't belong with men. And he says, listen, I have a sister that's more beautiful, but if you commit yourself to learning Torah, I'll marry her off to you. And Rish Lakish accepted. He saw that this man, sometimes it's not about what you say, it's the person himself. Like they say a story about the Chafetz Chaim, that he would sit there with a Chumash, and the way he connected with the Chumash without saying a single word did more to impact the neshama of everybody in that room than the entire Torah anytime inspirational speeches of everybody put together. Why? Because you just felt something far deeper than any, a Gedol Ador, a leader of a generation, a man that perfected himself to such a high level. Looking at the Chumash can have a greater impact. This was a fact that people said after they left the room. They said, what he just showed us by just kissing the Chumash gave us more chizuk than shiurim from the greatest rabbanim of those generations. It's an amazing thing. So Rabbi Yochanan, even from one sentence, Rish Lakish saw something profound and amazing about this man and saw that this was the real deal. And it attracted him. So he accepted. And then the Gemara says something interesting. He tried to jump over the river again, and he wasn't able to. And the Gemara says, the pshat is, Torah mateshet kocho shel adam. The Torah weakens the strength and resolve of the person. So if that's the case, we have a very clear contradiction. Rish Lakish accepted, didn't even learn Torah yet, right? He just accepted learning Torah. He was no longer able to jump the river. It weakened him. And here's Yaakov Avinu, 14 years coming from Yeshivat Shem Va'ever, and he's strengthened? How does it make sense? Here he's strengthened, here he's weakened. Does Torah strengthen? Does Torah weaken? Yaakov Avinu was super strong, Rish Lakish became super weak. They're not adding up. Says of Yaakov Naimin, Zechet Tzadik Livracha, it's very clear. There's actually zero contradiction. Both are the same point. The Torah gives a person the ability to have incredible desire and focus and maximizing of energies to what he is zeroed in on. What he desires and he values becomes super strong. So when it came to, let's talk about Rish Lakish, his whole life, what was important, what was valuable, it was prowess, it was athletics, it was the ability to be clever and rob people. And therefore he was very strong. The minute he wanted and desired the Torah, all of that strength faded because it was no longer important. It no longer carried value. So even when he wanted to cross the river, he couldn't do it. He just couldn't do it because it's not my mission anymore. I shirked that. I'm no longer that person. So it weakened him in the resolve of something that he was no longer interested. As opposed to Yaakov Avinu, at that moment where he saw Rachel and he saw the future of all of Am Yisrael, Yosef, Binyamin, great tzaddikim, emerging from this relationship, it was not a physical lifting, it was a spiritual lifting. It became an act of spiritual chesed that needed to be done to create that bond between him and Rachel, that future nation of Am Yisrael, and therefore the concentration of the mind becomes very powerful, dafka because of the Torah. In something that is valued, it becomes strong. And I'll give you as an example, there was once a person, in the Yeshivat Panovich, they had a lot of workers. You have people that are sometimes construction workers, or I'll give you as another example, like people that are extremely gifted athletically, that they have like incredible athletic abilities like soccer players, where they're able to go Well, how big is a soccer field? It's massive, right? They're able to run 1, 2, 3, 90 minutes straight. They're just running and running and running and running. And you say, how could they not get tired? They're always running. Take those same soccer players and say to them, listen, I need you to sit down a half hour and do what you're doing right now. Sit down in the middle of a shi'ur. Just listen. Divrei Torah, Yaakov Avinu, Yitzhak, nice, engaging. I promise you, those soccer players don't last for 10 minutes. They're already asleep. They can't last for 10 minutes. They won't last. You put them in front of a chumash and tell them, just read. Do shnai mikra. Something simple. 5 minutes, they'll be like this, like flies. They'll be, these are the greatest athletes in the world. Why can't you do this? You can't stay awake for 5 minutes? No, they can't do it. They physically can't do it. Take a ben Torah, ben yeshiva, he'll sit there for hours. Morning to evening, no tired, no anything. He sleeps 3 hours a night. He doesn't need to sleep. He doesn't need to do it. He sits and learns. How's this scrawny little guy able to do what these major athletes with massive muscles are working at? They're not able to do it. The pshat is, their heart is in a different place. They physically can't do it. Physically can't do it because their heart is not there. And the Ben Torah, it's not because he's weak. If he wanted to, he'll be the best soccer player. He doesn't. It's a pshat is, my heart's not there. I don't care about it. It's not important. It's not valuable. So you're not going to do a good job. You can't do it. Torah is valuable. He'll sit there for hours. He'll be able to do it. The strength of the person is very much associated with his desire. Mimela, a person who's interested, he has no excuse. There's all the excuses. I can't do it. I'm too tired. I'm too weak. I don't understand. It's all because there's no will. If the will exists, he is capable of doing it 100%, no questions asked. And that's the skill that Yaakov Avinu teaches us. That's the yichad lev, that he was able to lift this. Is a pshat wasn't the physical strength. The physical strength wasn't that impressive. It was the spiritual strength to be able to focus on a mission and to be able to do that mission. Meaning it set the tone. If I have a mission, I'm going to accomplish it. And that was the greatness of Yaakov Avinu, which is honed in through the Torah HaKedosha. Baruch Adonai le'olam. Amen ve'amen. B'chaninahu kasher רצה הקדוש ברוך הוא לזכות ישראל לפני עבודו לצוות שנאמר אדוני חפץ למען צדקו יגדיל תורה וידיר